Okay, well, I make it 12 o'clock. I can see lots of you have joined already, so a very warm welcome to you and welcome to our webinar today, which is all about perfecting the client onboarding solutions. So there's a few things that we're going to do today. I'm hoping to make this webinar as interactive as possible. We've got some polls running throughout the webinar. Please join in those. We've also left a little bit of time at the end for a questions and answers session. So I'm delighted today to be joined by Simon Leek, Director at Fibre CRM. Simon is the all things onboarding expert here today. So I'm really pleased you could join us, Simon. Perhaps if you could just say hello and give us a bit of background about yourself and Fibre.
Thank you, Jo. Yes, so I'm founder of Fibre CRM. So my background, I consulted on CRM marketing business development across many industry sectors for the last 30 odd years, started in 1989, and in the last 11 years, focused entirely in the accountancy CPA sector. So Fibre CRM have worked with many top 100 accounting firms in the UK, US and Canada. So that's a bit of an overview of Fibre.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thanks very much, Simon. Well, let's get started. I thought it might be interesting for me to sort of chat about client onboarding generally and what we see across the client base that we work with. So I know, as many of you know who are watching today, you do know JE Consulting. Hopefully you know me. For those that don't, I'm MD here at JE Consulting. But we work with about 140 professional firms at the moment across the UK, and have seen really great and slick onboarding processes with some of the firms we work with. That isn't the norm, I have to say, and we do see a real mixed bag of different issues associated with both putting proposals forward to potential new clients, but also once they've accepted that proposal, actually bringing them in-house, moving them over from another accountant, getting them set up with all of the relevant information. And I had to think before we started the webinar about what the most common issues were. And I think in things that I've seen really have been inconsistent branding. It stands out. You know, a proposal will go out that's got great branding on it, but the information requests and emails, etc., that follow that are very inconsistent. So that's always a bugbear of mine, but inconsistent branding, I think, is one thing. I think we also find that often there can be too many people involved in the onboarding process within the practice, and the client, potential client or new client, gets a little bit overwhelmed with who they're supposed to respond to and have multiple people asking them different things all on the same day, and that can get a bit overwhelming. So this overwhelming of emails asking for information. Also the length of time that it takes to process the onboarding information. It seems to be, in some cases, inordinately long. Now, I'm not in practice, so maybe I'm being a bit naive there, but I can never understand why it takes so long to get it all together. And I guess a couple of IT-related things that I see are no integration in the onboarding process with the practice management system, and also lots of issues around data security. I'm amazed that people are being asked to send passports on email or confirm dates of birth or bank account details on email, which never surprises me. It surprises me, and it shouldn't, because it just happens so frequently. So I thought what we do to start off with is just run a poll here on onboarding issues and ask you this question. Let's launch this. So this multiple choice, so you can have more than one. Which of these really applies to your practice? So inconsistent branding, too many people, all the things I've just talked about. You might actually say to me that none of the above. You know, we're really efficient in the onboarding process. Okay, so I'm just seeing some of the responses coming in here. Lots of people are talking about integration with practice management, which is interesting. Okay, so let's end that poll and share the results with you. So, inconsistent branding, data security at the lower end of the scale, moving on to too many people, clients being overwhelmed, but by far length of time to process onboarding and the integration with practice management. Okay, that's interesting. So just stop sharing that. So Simon, in terms of onboarding, we can see what some of the issues are there. I don't know whether I've got that right or wrong, and I'm looking now to you as the expert to say, what does client onboarding actually involve or include?
I think that poll didn't surprise me, actually. So it's in terms of client onboarding, it covers everything from the initial prospect saying, yes, we wish to go ahead, to creating the new client in practice management, which is the creating the new client in the practice management is probably the challenge, because people don't want to use multiple systems. So if we actually have a look at what is involved from prospect to new client take on, you've got things like the proposal generation, as you were just saying. Some firms don't do proposals, they just send an email, so it's sort of inconsistent branding going on. Client information gathering as well is also important. You mentioned about passports, gathering information for anti-money laundering. That information is quite onerous. Client take-on forms are created in Word and Excel. Then you have to do the anti-money laundering checks, and you have to do your KYC process, particularly in the UK, the know your client processes, the due diligence, the risk assessment, and there's a whole raft of approval processes involving partners and money laundering reporting officers and risk committees and so on. So all that's got to happen before you then have to create an engagement letter. And when you've done all of that, you then got to send professional clearance letters out to maybe to the previous accountant to get information from them, and then create the client in IRIS or CCH or some sort of practice management system. So those are just some of the elements. Some firms also send a client satisfaction survey out once you've completed the onboarding process. So all of these sort of things take a long time, and there's no one central place where you have visibility of what's going on.
So just sort of following on from that, we talked in the poll about the amount of people that get involved in the onboarding process. In your experience of working with the firms that you do, how many people can or should be involved in that onboarding process?
I think a lot of people are involved in the process. It can't just be one person, and I think the poll showed that some people have, that as an issue. But it just touches on, as I said earlier, the MLRO, the risk officer, the partner involved, the client manager involved. You may have a team involved in making sure the data going into your practice management system is clean and all the information is filled in. So there's a lot of people involved, but it does depend on what technology you're using as well. I was speaking to a firm the other day about their onboarding process, and they send out a satisfaction survey at the end of the onboarding process, and it's the business development person that will give a list of people that they've onboarded to the marketing person to then send out the survey. So that can involve, a lot of people, and some of those elements should be automatic. They shouldn't have to be a manual process. So it can involve a lot of people.
Okay, so that kind of process with multiple people being involved, and going back to the point on the poll, I think, which is it seems to take an inordinately long time to onboard. Why do you think firms are wasting billable hours onboarding? Where are the holes in that?
We've got a good calculator which just shows where some of the time is taken. Can I just share that with you?
Yeah.
I just share my screen. Just go to my screen and share it. So this is an interesting calculator. So in here, in orange, we've got a list of all the tasks that typically take place. So you could probably do this as a firm and look at how much time does it take you to produce a proposal. I mean, some firm we've heard can take days to produce proposals. So you could sort of enter in, you know, the time it might take you to do that. And generate the engagement letter and enter information maybe from Companies House, or chasing for missing information, carrying out your KYC due diligence. All these things can take time per client. So in this example here, a firm took on 200 businesses last year and 150 private clients. It just shows that for every firm they take on, it currently takes about 3 hours effort, whereas with an onboarding system, it can reduce that by a third to less than an hour. So if you think of that in the number of days, in this example, it's showing that an effective onboarding system is reducing it from 92 days to just 26 days. I mean, just think about the increased capacity for your client take-on teams and the time that's freed up for more billable work, if that's what you want to do. But it's one place, an onboarding system is one place to go for everything. And it just makes life easier for everybody, including the partners, and the customers, of course, have a much more streamlined onboarding process. So that's sort of one example. I'll stop sharing screen, but it just gives you an example of what that might look like in terms of time.
Okay, so that calculator's interesting. Actually, are you happy for anybody that's participating in this webinar to have a go with that calculator? Yeah.
Obviously, just send us their email or something, and we can share that.
Okay. One second, I might be able to do this now because it will capture it with the Zoom. So if you would like to test out the calculator, if you log your details here, it should capture it for me. There we go. Just give people a few minutes. A few seconds, we haven't got time for a few minutes. Right, brilliant. Thank you for that. So I'll end that poll, and that will capture everybody's details, and I'll send those on to you, Simon, and we can let people test out the calculator. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay. So just moving on from that, one of the points I made earlier was about data security and some of the sort of horror stories that I've heard about or seen. What's caused you most concern when you've worked with firms and looked at data security in relation to onboarding?
The biggest issue I've found is that firms are still asking for information via email, which is an insecure communication channel, and they generally have to capture highly sensitive personal data on people. Even when I look to a solicitor or an accountant, they will request maybe a copy of my passport, my UTR number, or whatever, my national insurance number via email. And I mean, from a GDPR perspective, that's not ideal. So firms really need to have a way of capturing that information securely, and make it easier for firms. In my own experience, when a solicitor or accountant asks me for this information via email, I'm immediately thinking they're not looking after my data. How can they look after my financial data or my sensitive information if they're not even bothered to ask it securely? So that's something to bear in mind. Okay.
I think, again, just chatting this through, Simon, one of the things that I tend to see, and I'm looking at it with my marketing head on at the moment, is that the client onboarding doesn't seem to join up well with marketing. So you'll see a situation where good marketing budget has been spent to make a business, aware of who you are. Good marketing budget has been spent on getting them to consider your firm. Then we get into the kind of final part of the funnel, which is all about, getting them to talk to you and having that conversation and that conversion conversation. And that marketing spend creates a lead, that converts and then falls over terribly in the onboarding process, where it's clunky, they're overwhelmed with those emails and so on. What's your take on that in terms of this client experience, from getting it to a call to action to actually getting them working with you?
I think that's where onboarding needs to start, at the prospect stage. The whole journey from the lead through to the onboarding process needs to happen in one system, and then that system talk to practice management. Very often, without that integration, as the poll highlighted, people are putting, or accountants are putting, their prospects into their practice management system. It's not a place for marketing or prospects. So you end up with disjointed systems. So it's really important that an onboarding system is part of that lead to prospect to client onboarding process. And that onboarding system then needs to be fully integrated with practice management, so that the quality of data going into practice management is very high. You'd be surprised at how many accountants have very poor quality data sitting in their practice management systems, because there's been no governance of the data going in. So a good onboarding system is going to ensure that all the right information is populated before it can be created in practice management. And then it creates it in practice management automatically. It creates the services, or if it's in CCH, you might create all the assignments and the budgets automatically without you having to rekey that information in. So an onboarding system is only good if it can integrate well with the firm's practice management tax systems.
And have you seen firms that you've worked with who can highlight specific, you might have answered this question already actually, but specific improvements in that conversion to being a happy client with having a good experience with you?
We've got a couple of clients that spring to mind. It's quite large clients. They've actually stopped people being able to manually create a client in CCH Central. They're not allowed to do it directly. It has to go through the onboarding system. And it's the onboarding system that is putting in the checks and balances, all the measures to make sure that all the right information is populated before it can go into practice management. So it's a great starting point, because those firms that do it well have great quality data sitting in practice management. So then it's very easy to start targeting, from a marketing perspective, all those right clients. Rather than doing a scattergun approach, we can say, let's target everybody with a turnover greater than 10 million that buys audit work from us or bookkeeping, who is the primary contact. All that information is of a high quality sitting in practice management.
Okay, so again, I'm going to talk about the marketing function here, because instantly I can say, well, we can target for cross-sell more effectively, and I think that's one of the problems that we always face, or the marketing teams at the firms we work with always face, is that some of the data in there does not allow for good cross-sell marketing. You can't email specific lists by sector or size, but all of that solves that problem. Absolutely,
yeah, and it really brings the surfaces what you're actually selling, what you are talking to your clients about, what you've never talked to the clients about. You've got sort of like a much more visual representation of actually what your clients are buying or what they're not buying, more importantly.
Yeah. Okay, just on that practice management side of things, I thought it'd be interesting, so I know we're going to talk about that, just to have a look at integration with practice management. So I'm just going to run another quick poll here, which is asking everybody, do you have onboarding processes linked automatically to your practice management system at the moment?
It's going to be an interesting one.
Okay.
It really depends what practice management system they're using, of course.
It does. Well, there you go. So no, seems to be the leader here, which is interesting. Now, I know that you mentioned about which practice management system that you're using. So I guess one of the questions to ask your, if you're looking at going for software to help you support this, is which practice management systems have you got that integration with, and at what level?
Yeah, so we work with generally with Iris and with Wolters Kluwer. We have integration with Xero. We have integration with Iris Star Practice Management. Iris Practice Management itself is old. That's where we started our integration about 11 years ago. So we got a very big integration with Iris and with CCH. So for example, with CCH, we can create new clients, we can create the assignments associated with the clients, we can create the budgets, the schedules, we synchronize the users. It's a very big integration. So we see sometimes firms doing a sort of integration through products like Zapier and middleware products, but they're not really ideal to run a business on, because there's too many processes happening. So that's typically with Iris. We pull in things like all the financial data from Iris. So for example, let's say in a tax return somebody has second property income, then that tells the marketing system that they're a landlord. So you can easily target those firms that are a landlord, or tax investigation insurance thresholds, and there's a lot of things that you can do with the integration, a deep integration.
Okay, so just kind of moving a step on from that, from integration over to reporting. So what sort of reporting do you think is important in the onboarding process? What do you think both marketing and kind of internal ops need to see from the information in there?
I think I'll give a demonstration in a little while of some tools that you can use, particularly in Outlook, to get an overall visibility of what's going on from a reporting point of view. But before I go into that, it's important that you can see overall what's going on. The problem that most firms have is they're not using one system for onboarding, so you don't get a collective view of what's going on. So let's say, for example, I'm administrator managing the onboarding process. I want to know what engagement letters are out for signatures, what's come back that needs to be processed, what data information requests are out for clients to send in their passport information, and what proposals need to be signed off. There's a lot of areas there, and bringing that all together on one dashboard, so you've got complete visibility of what's going on, is massively important. How do firms have that sort of visibility? And in a little while, I'll go into Outlook and I'll show you how you can get that sort of view inside a tool that you might use every day.
Yeah, just on that point, actually, it kind of led me on to thinking about app stacks. You mentioned you've got kind of multiple systems there. So what's your view on choosing the right apps to fit with your onboarding and CRM system?
It's a bit of a sort of a chicken and egg with apps. So apps are great, easy to use tools that deliver a particular part of the onboarding process. The challenge I've found is that there's so many apps in the marketplace and none of them really talk to each other in a collective way. And I sort of feel like the market's doing a bit of a disservice to accountants, really, because they may be good at one area, but they don't really provide an answer in terms of reporting and in terms of the whole process flow. So I personally don't like lots of apps. So we got integration with apps. So for example, if you use anti-money laundering services like Smart Search or Credit Safe or ID3 Global, to do anti-money laundering checks, they're great, but they need to be deeply integrated with the onboarding system. So for example, I can have a client on the screen, I push a button, it does an anti-money laundering check in Smart Search and returns the results into the system and creates the task for the next stage in the process. So apps are good as long as they're integrated with the onboarding system.
Okay. Right, well, look, Simon, I think we've chatted a lot. It might be a good point now just to actually have a look at some of the points that you've mentioned, onboarding tools. You mentioned Outlook as well. So let me hand over the screen share to you, and let's have a look at
Sure.
what we can do.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll just start in PowerPoint just to try and set the the flow, but then I'll go into Outlook Live. I'll show you my Outlook and the sort of information you might want to see during the onboarding process. So first of all, let's start with the flow. So typically, this is a flow. So a lead comes in, marketing may qualify that. It's maybe handed to the business development team who'll create an opportunity. Now, from that opportunity, within the opportunity, you've got what services they're maybe interested in purchasing, and they're either going to go ahead or they're not, but let's assume they're going ahead. So you want to send a proposal for e-signing. So all of these steps I'm about to show you are in one onboarding system. They're not multiple apps. You're not having to use spreadsheets or Word documents. It's one system. So for example, if we have a look at the proposal e-signing, so this is maybe on the opportunity, it's been marked as closed won. I go to the menu and I choose send PDF or send it for electronic signing. And you can have different sort of proposals. You can have this one has got maybe a front cover. It's got pulling in profiles, bios of the team that are going to be working on the customer or client. And it'll pull through standard text. So that's one example of how easy it is to produce a proposal. Now, if you think about the spreadsheet, the time savings that I showed earlier, a lot of firms are spending a lot of time producing proposals. What you just saw there was go to the menu, click, print, and it's created. So it's a huge time saver. So then the customer signs that, and you then need to capture data from the client. So in this example, you want to give a customer a branded portal where they can go into the system, fill in their details, upload any passport information, and all that information is being captured securely. It's all encrypted. So from a GDPR perspective, it's nice and safe, and they submit it, and that information comes back into the client record in the onboarding system. So now we've got the whole journey from lead to opportunity to proposal generation to client data capture, all in the one system. I can then go into that system and I can do an anti-money laundering check. So now I've got the information from the client, I can click a button and go off and do a smart search check in this example, and it will return all the data from smart search in terms of PEPs or sanctions checks, whether it's a pass or a fail. And if it's a fail or a refer, it might trigger some sort of task or email to the MLRO to have a look at it and to assess it from a risk perspective. So again, in the one system, we've now done the anti-money laundering checks. The next stage is the KYC. Now, typically, a firm will do things like this. So on the right-hand side, you can see a risk form. So we often see this in Word or Excel, but why not have it as part of the one system? So if I'm an administrator that needs to ask the partner to do a risk assessment, I can click a button and that will send the partner an email with a link to the risk form where they can fill it in and go through their risk processes, as well as sign off the complete anti-money laundering process. So within an onboarding system, you've got a KYC system where, depending on the type of business they are, it'll ask different questions on risk and adverse media, conflict checking, and who the UBOs are, the beneficial owners of the business. That information is being collated in one central onboarding system. So that is the KYC process. So don't forget, this is all happening in the one system. Once that's all approved, then you're into producing an engagement letter. So here we have a way to create an engagement letter, all from the CRM onboarding system, where it goes off to the client for electronic signing. Yeah, so it's all nice and simple processes along the way. Of course, at some stage, you might want to get the previous accountant to sign off or send you in all their information they have on the client. So again, you're on the client record, Bob Smart, and the information is, I can click a button and send their previous accountant an email. So those are the processes. Once that's all done, and we then want to create the client and potentially the services in RS or CCH. And that is all done without any sort of double entry. So to give you a sort of a live feel for this, if we just have a look at what happens after that. So the onboarding complete doesn't stop at creating the client in RS or CCH. You want to send out a survey. You want information syncing with Outlook. You want to use it for email marketing and keeping in touch and cross-selling and referral. All those good things can happen within the CRM onboarding solution. So I'm just going to jump into Outlook and just show you something a little bit, what it might look like live. So I'm just going to load my Outlook. So Joe, can you see my Outlook? I'm not sure whether I'm sharing my screen or the, yeah, great, thank you. So I'm in my Outlook, and I've got in my demo folder, I've got two emails that have come in. So there's one here from Simon Leek, who's interested in some services. Now, on the right-hand side here, this is looking in my CRM onboarding system, and it hasn't found the email address in the system. So from here, I can create the contact or create a lead for marketing to deal with. But I'm going to go to a contact that we've got quite a lot of information already, and this is Bob Smart. So this is going to do a lookup in the CRM, and what it's returning on the right-hand side is information about the individual, Bob Smart. So I can see his phone number easily. I can see date of birth, maybe his marital status, his Rachel's his partner, and I can see the client manager in our accountancy firm is Rachel Preston, and she's the client manager. So I've got some visibility of that. I can also see the business, and I can see that we're KYC in progress with the client. They don't owe us any money. Obviously, they're a client, and there's a link to Xero, then it would show us how much they owe us. So you've got key information that you can decide what you see when you're looking at that client. And further down the screen, I can see sort of what opportunities are going on with the client. I can see that they've signed a proposal, and I can go and look at that proposal and see what they've signed. So it starts to bring everything together within my Outlook. And then from here, I can do things like maybe archive the email or capture all the email conversation with Bob, so that information becomes visible inside the CRM onboarding system. So anybody in the firm that is looking at Bob will see that history of email. It's not just sitting in my inbox now. So from a reporting point of view, as you were asking earlier, Joe, it really just starts surfacing that information for everybody across the firm. And it's very easy to go and have a look at the company in the CRM. You can click on a link and it'll take me straight into the client record, and I can see what's going on with the client, have a look at the different information on that particular client. So that's a very quick sort of overview of the onboarding process. I'll hand back to Joe.
Okay, thanks very much, Simon. So we've had a couple of questions come through, which might be a good opportunity just to answer these. So question here from Delith at WMT. Hi Delith, thanks for joining the webinar. Do you have integration with Iris Practice Engine?
They've got an API, depending on what version of Practice Engine you're using. I think if it's 9.6 plus, then we can integrate with Practice Engine.
Okay. Hope that answers your question, Den. If you've got any more, fire them through. Joe Edwards, there can't possibly be two of us, but I think this is, I have seen you before, Joe. Hi, nice to have you back. So is the CRM onboarding solution a replacement of an existing CRM system or a bolt-on that feeds client information into the practice management system?
That's a big question. It really depends what you're using the existing CRM system for, but generally it's a replacement for.
Okay, and another question from Joe, which is an interesting one. I know we've chatted about this before, Simon, but have you worked with any law firms to implement this system?
It's a lovely question. I've worked with law firms a lot in my previous life. We at the moment are focused in the accountancy sector, but we also recognize that law firms have very similar requirements. That's something that we have an interest in, but not right now. Okay.
And thanks for those questions, Joe. And then I've got another question here. Do you integrate with tax calc?
We've not been asked to do an integration with that, but all the integrations that we have done to date have been led by customers saying, oh, could you integrate with this? And I think we started off with Iris, and we only had it with Iris, and then I think Kingston Smith at the time in London said, oh, could it work with CCH? And we did the integration. So we're keen to integrate with other platforms, but we've not been asked yet for tax calc.
Okay, and then Simon, hi Simon, hope you're well. So Simon Rowe, cost, question mark, there you go, the all-important question.
Cost. It really depends on what components you buy. The actual user price is about £34 a month per user, and then depends what integrations you want to do. So I would say, and it depends, depends on the size, but I'd probably say the cost of an employee per annum.
Okay. Obviously, if anybody is interested in getting some specific costs with practice, I'll give an option at the end for them to be able to get in touch with you, Simon. So we'll do that. Sure. Cameron, so you said you integrate with Iris. Why aren't they pushing your service to existing customers? Now that's an interesting question. Thanks, Cameron, because I did want to give you an opportunity, Simon, to talk about iChaser as well. So perhaps this is a good point to do that.
Yeah. So the CRM and onboarding system is quite a big offering in the market, but we have many firms using our system just for chasing clients for information. So, for example, chasing for their books 21 days later, or if they haven't sent them in, reminding them to pay their VAT, or chasing payroll information. So Iris Practice Management doesn't really have a way of sending outbound email to clients automatically. So we've created a product called iChaser that integrates with your Iris system. It's 250 quid a month, and it automates all those workflows. So any workflow you can think of that you want, Iris Chaser can do that. And Iris are going to be promoting that, I think in one of their outbound emails, where we're just sort of launching that now. Historically, Iris they've been very focused on their own products, and I think CRM and onboarding is a very big product. So we do have a partnership with them, and they do refer leads to us. So there is a healthy relationship.
All right, thanks, Simon. Okay. I know we're nearing to the end of our time here, so I've got another poll I'd like to run, which is really giving people here the opportunity to book, if they wish, a discovery call with you or your team, Simon, if they'd like. When we've had a taster of how your system works, but giving you the opportunity really to book a discovery call. So let me just launch this. So if you're watching and you would like a discovery call, just indicate on this poll, and then I can capture that at the end of our Zoom conversation, pass those details over to Simon. Thank you. I won't share those results, but it will capture your email, and I will pass those over to Simon to book the call with you. Simon, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. I hope everybody's gained a little bit of information, a few nuggets out there to help with the onboarding process. And if you'd like to, if you didn't indicate that you'd like to have a look at the calculator spreadsheet earlier and you've changed your mind since having looked at the software, that's fine. We'll send you an email afterwards with a recording of the webinar, and you can book that call with Simon quite happily. I'm just going to put your contact details up, Simon, so that if anybody does want to just contact you directly and cut me out of the loop, that's to get hold of you. And just on this theme of client onboarding, chatting to Simon, obviously the CRM conversation goes much wider than client onboarding. So we're going to have a look at some future webinars that cover CRM systems generally, but also using CRM for prospecting and using CRM for client cross-sell marketing. So we've got more to come with Simon. We're going to tap into his expertise to help us move on from the onboarding messaging onto those stories. But thank you so much for attending today. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you to Simon.
Pleasure. Thank you, Joe. Thanks for your time.
Pleasure. And as I say, recording of this webinar will be available on our website, if not the end of the day today, certainly early tomorrow morning. Okay, thank you very much.